So my intent now is to kind of cap off, round off, but not seal off the process that we just did, and then do a short ATM, yep, so that we have a little bit of time for an ATM. I'm thinking, sorry. It's one of those things I do, you know. Here's a question for you. Please don't answer out loud at this moment. Assume that the person that you are working with is totally able-bodied and intelligent. Okay? Totally able-bodied and intelligent. Whatever intelligent means for you and whatever able-bodied means for you. What would be the least amount of effort that you would need to deliver that lesson? How could you deliver that lesson with the least amount of effort on your part? So run through the scenario in your mind and just check out what kind of scene appears to you. So it could be something visual, or maybe it's something kinesthetic and you're sensing something in yourself. Or maybe it's auditory, who knows? But what appears to you as a scene? If I wanted to expend the least amount of effort and explore that same lesson, what would I do? And the person is paid their $150. You want to deliver the same quality, what would you do? Okay, so what would you do? They were able-bodied and intelligent. What would you do? What choice would you make to expend the least amount of effort for yourself? So you've had a moment to reflect. What would you do? Lucky.
Have them do some of the movements for me.
Are you sure?
That would expend less than mine. That's for sure.
Could you say that with a bit more confidence? Now, that's Lockie's opinion. What about your others? For you, what would you do? Because it is a very personal question. What could you do? Who's breathing, yours or theirs? And how's that? Yeah, and how will that deliver the lesson? So you're going to breathe on them?
No. No, I'm going to take time to sense myself before I put hands on somebody else.
Oh, so you're going to work hands-on?
Yes, sorry, I wasn't here for the lesson, but I'm thinking
I know. That's why we're having the conversation. So your choice will be to work hands-on, and you're going to tune into your breathing. Okay, that's good. You got one. Oh, okay.
I would get a hammock, string it between two trees.
Yeah.
And good. All right. So I would put Lockie in a hammock.
Yeah.
And I would do that.
I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Wow. I'm coming to your office. Okay. or wherever that hammock happens to be slung.
I would just sling a hammock and I would go, "You okay, Lockie?" And he'd go, "Yeah." And I go, and he'd come back.
All right, now we're cooking. Okay, someone else. Yeah, Nina.
With less effort, I would touch just the person and give the student the ability to sense the body image.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you minimize the amount of movement. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So great.
I think if I was a calmer,
What?
calmer, less anxious,
Karma. I thought you were, I'm karma.
then
Okay.
I'd be calmer, and I would do a lot more in my imagination as well. Just really visual, use my imagination on myself.
Okay. So you would have hands on and you would be vividly intending and imagining.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great.
Try and set them up a little bit better. Try and find a point of balance so that you're not working against gravity, and maybe, you know, towels and things to balance their legs, whatever.
Great. So you would structure the environment more so that they're just poised, just right. Yeah? So that means anything that you do will involve as least amount of effort as your. Oh, that's great. Cool.
I reckon I'd spend 5-10 minutes doing a really very small version ATM.
On yourself?
Before. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Just lie down and get that backward forward movement. Or that whole thing.
Yeah. So
before I went upright to do it.
Yeah. So clarifying exactly what your intents are and what you might be expecting to feel and things like that. Great. Now you're coming up with things I haven't thought of. You know that. I mean, all I thought of was Lockie's response. That was basically the hammock. I'm putting them in my pockets. I did think of yours a little bit, but yeah, that's great.
I would actually do it in standing.
Oh, clever possum.
Because you're not lifting anything, you're just rolling, and there's less effort in getting up and down and shuffling around.
Yeah. Great. So you would, so just as for the microphone, so you would deliver the same set of relationships, but in a different orientation to gravity. Nice. Yeah.
I would pick a day when I had fabulous flow.
Oh, yes.
Just fun.
Oh, you need a little ball. Say, no booking on Tuesday, no booking on Thursday. Come on Saturday. Good flow on Saturday. And definitely not before 11. Not before 11. But that is interesting. You know, we all have our timings. You know, me giving lessons before 11 o'clock in the morning is not a good thing. Yeah, 11 o'clock. Come at 10 p.m. in the evening. You get a good lesson. Yeah. But also, once again, things that I haven't thought of. Also, am I reliant on a crystal ball to gaze, or do I know how to generate in myself that state of flow? And maybe we know something about that. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Thank you. I'd speak with the student or the client because, well, I got a lot of direction from my student too, and for instance, changing the speed made it much easier on both of us.
Great.
Which was really nice.
So you would have a conversation.
Yes, and also check in with him or her frequently because, you know, how is that? How are you feeling? You know, yeah, that sort of stuff.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah, I love it.
Keep a few more suggestions and we can all go home after. I will have nothing to do. Because basically you're articulating what the whole 2 weeks is about. Yeah.
We just talked about letting them fall asleep rather than keeping them awake, talking to them. Just let them fall asleep. And
that will certainly reduce your effort. They mightn't learn anything, but hey, that's all right. Yeah. Those of you who have been working with people for a while, and when you work hands-on, there's a transformation that happens in people when they go to sleep. What was previously quite difficult to move, if it's if it's nervous system muscle related, that just disappears. It's like, and then I'm quite confident at that moment. No, it's the way that they consciously hold themselves together. Yeah. So I've seen that many, many, many times. They fall asleep. I don't know that they're asleep, but then I go, wait a minute, why did that just get easier? And the next thing, oh, that's why it's easier. Do you want to comment? For the practitioner, did you say? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's a really important part of the relationship, because when we connect with someone who comes into our working space, we're both entering a learning environment. And I need to learn as much as they're learning, maybe slightly different things, but it needs to be that we're both engaged in that learning process. And so, yeah, there have been times when I have wondered, does this person actually need a hip replacement, or is it something that they're doing? And when they go to sleep, you get a much better sense, as Zoran said, of what might be possible to change with my tools and what needs somebody else's.
Someone else's tools, drills and chisels and saws, yeah.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about when you get to work with somebody more than once is that you really begin to understand the relationship that you create together.
Yes.
Like because they're learning something from the way you move in terms of speed, but it's also when they're willing to give up their own pattern. I mean, I think that's what's really,
So that's a second answer to the question, yes, but right. Over a span of time, yes.
But so your question was, well, if you were to do that again with the same person, what does that person need? What have you learnt about them from that experience? And so really, So in terms of the rhythm and the way you touch or the conversation that you have, it's a very because you now have a place to start a relationship. Second date.
Basically, yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's like first date, second date, strangers to acquaintances, and sometimes to friends. When the professional contract is ended. Yes,
because you I mean, the level of trust that's required for somebody to lie on a table and for you to touch them is so huge that you've got to, the person has to, I mean, if they don't know you, and not all the people that I put my hands on know me relatively well, so you can have that conversation, but you've got to have much deeper conversation with the person who's going to maybe come back, so you can do something different.
Lovely. Yep. So to let you know, your reflections, your commentary are beautifully already engaged with the theme of the video that I'll show after lunch. So you're already in there. Okay. Yeah. Gloria.
Yeah, the other thing that I noticed is that I learned so much more about what I was doing yesterday because of what Angela did with me today. So having an FI of that same nature, or, it just tells you something about the direction of things and how things feel, how things land on you, so that you've got more. Well, for me, it would be a lot clearer to do that again now.
So,
having had
is there a comment here about? I think what I'm hearing is you do it once, conversation, second time, conversation. So there's something about more or less zoning in with the same framework again and again and again that you become familiarized, and then the effort drops.
Yeah, but also like by being the person on the table, you're actually learning something about where the hand placement, you know, feels on you, and so it gives you more information about when you're then actually the practitioner.
Yeah. So you having been the person receiving the experience, for want of a better term, being in the person's shoes and feeling what the touch is. Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah, so having regular FIs, I guess.
Having regular FIs, because this is the missing dimension. So now, you know, if we call functional integration hands-on work, just for the moment, let's just say that that's what it is. Then, of course, in awareness through movement, you hardly ever get that experience. Sometimes you'll get lessons about, you know, take the hand and pull, but very rarely is that there. What mostly the experience there is you against the floor. And I don't mean against the floor, I just mean you're on the floor, but sometimes it's against the floor. Yeah. Yes, Anna.
Question again of what learning, not
oh yes, we didn't answer that.
The learning, is there any subliminal learning that takes place if a person goes to sleep? Or is it, and they may even just go into that space between sleep and awake?
Well, look, I can answer the question like this. It's a little bit of an indirect answer, but it's kind of there. I can't remember. It was a case study that I read in some cognitive science book. I can't. And it's about short-term memory. And, you know, there are some individuals that just can't form the connections anymore for short-term memory. And the story was about this one particular chap. And, you know, they were exploring his short-term memory capacities. And one of the experiments was the researcher would come in, or the psychiatrist, I can't remember what they would come in and they would greet the guy, and then they'd come back in and they'd greet him again, and the guy wouldn't know who you were or what you were. So they played a little bit of a, I don't like the trick, but anyway, that's what they did. The guy stuck a drawing pin to his palm. You know this story? Yeah? Shake hands, prick, right? Now, the next time the same guy comes in, didn't want to shake hands. Now, is that learning? Is that the kind of learning, is that the kind of organic learning that happens below consciousness? You know, must everything be able to be declared, in other words, spoken, to be learning? Well, if that was the case, yeah, we wouldn't be investigating. Yeah. So there is something, there's a set of perturbations happening as you're moving a person, which means the sensory neurons are still, well, receptors are still going, everything's still cooking. Connections might form, connections might not form. I mean, I don't know. Are you dreaming? Is there rapid eye movement? We do know that very often the dreams are triggered by environment. Maybe as you're moving a person around, if they're in that state of sleep, it's a very long lesson and I've gone into REM, very long lesson, you know. But the fact is, we just don't know. I don't know. Actually, I can't say we. I don't know. No, let him have a good sleep.
I fell asleep in an FI once, or well, a few times, but it's one time that I actually remember really strongly because I had a dream, and the dream was that I was being skinned alive.
Oh, Jesus.
And
you're not
being skinned.
You've had that dream too?
and the bones and the muscles were all being pulled away, and it was right down to the bones.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was it was actually, it was really it's a transformational. It was a transformational dream, actually. Yeah. But it was amazing. Yeah. So something of what was happening,
interesting,
was having an effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Who's next? Chup.
comment. We know the value of rest and the importance of sleep in the learning process. And so if someone nods off partway through a lesson, it may be that they're integrating what has gone before that, whether or not anything in that time is added or not. But yeah, it is what it is. And I don't, unless I need the table for somebody else.
No. Do you wake people up, Lisa? You do?
It depends.
No, that's a good. That's a good answer.
Everything depends. So sometimes for somebody to actually feel safe enough to fall asleep on your table with you, with your hands on them, is an incredible thing for people. Yeah. To realise that they can do that, especially somebody who's really sleep deprived or has a lot of difficulty getting to sleep. That can be a huge thing for them. For other people, if that's their habit, is just to fall asleep as soon as it's an escape thing, and I would not particularly encourage that. So I think there's many different reasons for falling asleep and many different ways of you know, is it useful or is it not? I think will depend on the situation.
So definitely,
I don't like them falling asleep for a long time. I think it's a bit of a waste. But yeah. But in some situations that could be exactly what they need.
Yes. And if they keep telling you, wow, that was a great lesson, can I make a booking for next week?
And they actually, if you're still kind of doing some little gentle, you know, you're not going to be hauling them around, but they might actually wake up much more comfortable if things have kind of managed to shift a little bit, and that again can be a great thing.
So coming back to your comment, Jenny, about sleep being a consolidation phase, I mean, that's where modern research is kind of pointing. It's not only consolidation, it's, you know, what will be consolidated, what will be dissolved, what will be conserved, what will be gotten rid of. Now, that's not news. I mean, the Gestalt psychologists had this idea years ago, and they called it incubation. You know, you learn, and then you incubate. So there is something important about it, and it's establishing, as Lisa said, it depends. And the habit part makes a big difference. Yeah, so. Go to sleep.
If you fall asleep,
go to sleep. La da 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 da. What do you do to send people to sleep? La da 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 da. And you know, when you have your head resting on your lover's tummy or chest, and they're talking to you, and you not only hear their sound, but you feel their sound, and then there's the heartbeat, and then there's the pheromones. We're talking about environment here, yeah? It's a total environment. If you have the lights dimmed down low, and if they're really over padded and they're so comfy, I mean, I'm suffering with those bloody pillows at this apartment. They're not my pillows. It doesn't feel the same. Yeah, it's interesting. One little detail. It's a different pillow. It's not my pillow, and it takes 3 nights to adjust. I'm waiting for tonight. Yeah.
I've got a client of mine that, like, he falls asleep every time if he's on his tummy and I'm doing anything with his shoulder. If I get him to lie and tuck his hands under here, because he's a big guy, massage tables are a bit smaller. Within 30 seconds of him tucking his hands under here, he's out like a light, because he's really like elbow dominant. So I've figured out a way to do it for him anyway. Do whatever I'm doing, and then just slowly make movement a little bit bigger, because if you're too fast, he wakes up and everything grabs on. But the amount of movement that he's got when he falls asleep is like he's got 10 times as much movement through his shoulder and everything.
Yeah.
So I kind of slowly wake him up with a bit more movement or a bit more whatever I'm doing, or really untuck his hand out of there to move it. Yeah, but very, very, so I wake him up like that, and then he manages to keep it. But then he goes back to work at his computer like that. So I'm not doing that well with it. It's not staying there, but yeah. But in that between sleep and not sleep, he can do it quite well.
Now, was that a hand waving around? Yeah.
I remember listening to a cassette of Benny L's once. You know the one I'm talking
about? No, I don't.
And she was recounting a story of many, many years ago in Israel. And it was an ATM class. And she used to have two ladies come that would just put their mats down the back and promptly fall asleep, wake up, go home, and come back every week. And then, and they did that for a year, and she just left them. And then at the end of the year, she was had a bit of a break, and then she was asking for people to enroll for the next class, and they were the first two to come up. So she thought, okay, I'm going to ask them what's going on, but both of them were suffering huge trauma. And so they were sort of sleeping. But the next year, it had just disappeared. And they started joining in the lesson and just got better and better and better.
Okay. Yeah. See, that makes me breathe, right?
Yeah.
So there's something about that in the because this segment is about the relationship between ATM and FI. Hopefully, this is what we've learned for ourselves in our practice of ATM: when to stop, when to do less, when to do more, to go through this sweep of things. Now, if this is what we're granting ourselves, in FI, when someone is present to us, surely we can grant it to them. And that my identity as a successful functional integration giver is not tied to whether they fall asleep or they don't fall asleep. So that's really important. That somehow we are able to, in the same way that we attune to ourselves and we become more informed, and there's another word that I'm using. It's not authentic. There's another word. I'll use the poor option. We don't kid ourselves. We're not kidding ourselves about we're doing well. We're actually being very honest and sincere. I am really caring for myself. Then that is what comes across into FI with another person. Yeah? So that is one thing that you're bringing definitely into the FI context. What's the other thing that you're bringing? Your presence and your awareness to yourself. That's what this process was, this process here. Your sense of effort, if you have to increase the effort, chances are there's a reason for that. Like you said, if you find the balance point and everything's set up perfectly and you find all of that and there's still then you go, definitely, it's not me. Something in my interaction with this person, they're not allowing me to do. Why would I try to overcome that? In the same way that you don't overcome it with yourself. Now, this is like what I call nudging around in ATM. You nudge around, you look for this avenue, you look for that avenue, you look for this avenue, and then you find the avenue, you go, I think it might be this way. Yeah. So there's the three: your presence, your awareness, your tactic of nudging around, patience, 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 yeah, all of that. Right there, straight from ATM into FI. And I know that we have this term called self-use, that everything that I've just mentioned is self-use. It's not just having a certain poise of your head above your pelvis and making these movements. Yeah, that's really, really uber refined self-use. But I'm talking of these big thematic self-uses that we bring into the FI. Huge thematic things. Yeah. And the more the more I can remind myself of that, the better my FIs get. Yeah. Yeah.
Couple of us, I know Beck was saying it too, about, and it's probably to do with your self-use, but with moving arms as much, I don't know what it is, but maybe if it's, I don't know, if they're a big movement, I suppose you've got to move yourself through space a bit more, or...
Okay, yeah, get you.
Arms would be
now,
really helpful.
Well, you see, this is always the problem. It's always a damn problem. There's always someone who's one step ahead of the game. That is a question. So notice how proximally you worked or you explored. I have no problem with the word work. You worked in that lesson. You could work distally. You could work through the arms. It might be more work for you, but it might be less work. It might be less effort. This is a choice that you need to make. Work proximally, work distally. So you want to lie on the table? Now, we're not going to have time for an ATM, but that's okay. So notice that we were exploring in terms of the movement, right? So I'm now changed the discourse a little bit. Now we're focusing on the movement that we were doing. We were focused on a really particular set of relationships. Not anything like bingo, bingo. What were they? Hip joint, shoulder joint, shoulder joint. They're either going together, one's leading and then the other one comes in, the other's leading and the other one comes in. There's only certain, that's it. That's all the relationship. How do you want to affect that relationship? You can affect it lying on their back. Why not? Come up here, touch my hand. No, touch my hand. Push me. Good, great, done. Come up here. Lift your leg. Push me. Great. Now push me here. Now push me there. Alternate, one and the other. See, now I'm doing very little work. I like it, because he's intelligent and he's healthy, isn't he? Now push together. Oh, that's tricky. Look, he doesn't know how to do that. Doesn't know how to do it. Now, here's a suggestion. The next time you go to do that, bend your right leg and hang it out to the side when you begin to push. That's it. There we go. See that? Now, stop a moment. Lower everything down. So this is the movement. So now, notice the words didn't communicate that. So here's what I mean, Raymond. Okay? I mean this. When you start to push, do this. Yeah? When you start to push, do that. Does that make sense? Yeah? So you ready? Bend this leg. Okay, off you go. Push. Yeah, there it goes. Can you see that? Right. No proximal point of contact. However, now that you've seen that pattern, thank you, Raymond. Yeah. Now that you've seen that pattern, can you see you could launch into also, put this hand behind your head. Lift up your head and your hand. That's it, just like, great. Now, lower it down. There it is. There it is. There it is. Okay, take it away. Bend that leg. Sorry. Sorry for my butt. That wasn't very polite, was it? It was great for Raymond, but really awful for you. Uh-huh. There it is. There it is. Using longer levers. Yeah. Now, if you wanted to, you could pick up his leg and carry it, but it's bloody heavy leg. Why would I do it? Yeah. So once you know the set of relationships that you want to explore, you can do it. You can do it in any scenario, and your one of standing is the easiest. Why? Because human beings are built to turn around a vertical axis with very little energy expenditure, assuming that they're not all bowed and displaced everywhere. Yeah? So there it is. That's it. So if you know what effect you're trying to create in here, if you're clear about that, then you can access that effect from any limb. And please know that in my repertoire, I consider the head and the neck the fifth limb. Because where C7 articulates with T1, that whole first rib circle is such a strong connection. Yeah, that area there. It's like this is quite independent. Yeah, and you can see how independent it is, right? You can go, yeah. So this is like a fifth limb. So you've got 5 limbs to operate from. Is that kind of, yeah? But we'll do things, okay? Right? Because yesterday, I think you made that request. Can we do that ATM where we're doing this? I remembered that request, and so I selected that to do. Because can you see that that's the ATM that you asked for, that baby rolling ATM? Yeah. Yeah. So does that make sense? That once you know the set of relationships that you're affecting, you can do it from multiple places, in multiple orientations, and each one will be experienced just slightly differently. And those, don't have enough hands, those overlapping experiences build up to a really competent pattern of action that's able to deal with multiple scenarios in the world. It stops being brittle. Thank you, Raymond. I didn't mean to leave you lying there. It's not a brittle pattern anymore. It's robust because it's been explored in a multiplicity of different situations with different realizations, different enactments. Yep. And watching you do what you do today, it's just a matter of repertoire, really. Yep. Is that a wave? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. So before we break for lunch, you'll hear me say this many, many times in the next few weeks, that your awareness through movement lessons offer you 2 distinct sets of information. On the one hand, they're offering you all those attentional, perceptual, ethical being I care for myself, that's ethics, qualities. Doesn't matter what lesson you do, those qualities, those properties are always present in every lesson. They're always circulating. What then changes is that some lessons are about these kinds of movements, and then some lessons are about those kinds of movements, and then some lessons are about those. So the movements vary. The sets of relationships investigated vary, but this is always constant. So what you were practicing on the table with each other, you were practicing the constant, the thing that never changed. What your presence, your awareness, the qualities, you always bring to every table. But what does change are the movement relationships. And when you go and study, and I'm using that word very deliberately, when you study the composition of the lessons for their movement composition, you'll find that each lesson is somehow composed around a particular set of relationships. And then you start to realize, my God, that set of relationships appears in lesson AY 25, 39, 46, like 50 variations, 60 variations of the same relationship. Now, once you know that, you can relax a little bit in your ATM teaching because you know what relationship's being investigated. It's like the load suddenly drops because you see the underlying pattern. And you go, oh yeah, great. So I'll be saying that again and again because it's the two are a little distinct, but there is some overlap. Okay. Lunchtime? Thank you for your discussion. That was great. You're right on track, guys. Way beyond track, actually. Good. Yeah.